She signed the wrong contract. It was marriage, the poor guy revealed. He was a billionaire heir the next day. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories like this one. Your support truly means the world to us. And by the way, where are you watching from today? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us go back to our main character. The rain had already soaked through her thin jacket by the time she pushed open the glass door of the law office. It was nearly 9 o'clock at night, and the building felt half asleep. The receptionist's desk was empty. The lights were dim. Everything about this place told her she should not be here anymore. But she did not have a choice. Her name was Emily Carter, and tonight was her deadline. Her boots squeaked softly against the marble floor as she walked toward the conference room at the end of the hall. She could feel her heart beating in her throat. 24 hours earlier, she had been a waitress working double shifts. 24 hours earlier, she had still believed she could fix everything on her own. Now, eviction notices and medical bills were folded inside her bag like silent threats. The door was already open. Inside, a man stood by the window, his back to her. He was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed simply in dark slacks and a plain white shirt with the sleeves rolled up. No watch. No jewelry. Nothing that suggested wealth. He looked more like someone who had just finished a long day of work, not someone who could change her life with a single sentence. "You are late," he said calmly without turning around. "I am sorry," Emily replied. Her voice sounded smaller than she wanted. The bus was delayed. He turned then, and for a brief moment their eyes met. His expression was unreadable. Not cold, not kind, just controlled. "My lawyer is waiting," he said. "We should not waste time." She nodded and followed him to the table. A thick stack of papers lay neatly arranged in front of her, held together by black clips. A pen rested on top, positioned carefully, as if someone had already decided how this would end. "This is the agreement we discussed," the man said. "Everything is standard, temporary, clean." Emily swallowed. "And you are sure this will solve everything?" "It will solve what you need solved," he replied. "The money will be transferred within 1 business day." 1 business day. That was all she needed. 1 day to save her apartment, 1 day to keep the lights on, 1 day to breathe again. She glanced down at the first page. The words blurred slightly as her eyes skimmed the lines. Legal language. Formal terms. Too many paragraphs. Too little time. Her fingers trembled as she turned the page. "This is just for appearances, right?" she asked quietly. "You said I would not have to do anything real." "That is correct," he said. "You will attend a few public events. You will sign when asked. And when the term ends, we both walk away." Emily hesitated. Something in her chest felt tight, but she ignored it. She had ignored worse feelings before. Hunger, fear, shame. She picked up the pen. Her signature came out uneven, the ink pressing too hard into the paper. As she wrote her name, she felt an odd sense of finality, like a door closing somewhere behind her. She slid the documents back across the table. The man looked down at the page, then at her. For the first time, his expression shifted just slightly. "It is done," he said. Emily exhaled a shaky breath she did not realize she had been holding. "So, that is it," he nodded once. "Yes. You are legally bound." The word legally made her stomach drop. But before she could ask what he meant, the lawyer entered the room, smiling professionally, already reaching for the papers. "Congratulations," the lawyer said casually. "Mr. Hale." "Mrs. Hale." Emily froze. "I am sorry," she said, her voice barely audible. "What did you just say?" The man beside her did not answer. Outside, the rain continued to fall, unaware that somewhere inside a quiet office building, a woman had just signed her name onto the wrong contract and married a stranger without even knowing it. Emily did not remember leaving the building. She only remembered the cold. The rain had slowed to a mist, clinging to her hair and eyelashes as she stepped onto the sidewalk. Cars passed by their headlights, smearing into long white lines across the wet pavement. Somewhere behind her, a door closed. Somewhere behind her, her life had split cleanly in two. Married. The word echoed in her head, heavy and unreal. She stopped beneath a streetlight and pressed her palm against her chest as if she could physically hold her heart in place. Her fingers brushed the folded copy of the contract inside her bag. The paper felt thicker now, sharper. She had signed it because she had no time. That truth followed her all the way home. Emily lived in a narrow apartment on the second floor of a tired brick building the kind landlord stopped caring about years ago. The hallway light flickered when she climbed the stairs. When she unlocked her door, the smell of instant noodles and old paint greeted her like an accusation. She dropped her bag on the chair and leaned against the wall, sliding down until she was sitting on the floor. The bills were still spread across the small table where she had left them that morning. Red stamps. Final notices. A letter from the hospital folded neatly on top. She picked it up with shaking hands. Her mother had been admitted 3 weeks ago after collapsing at work. The diagnosis had come fast. The bills had come faster. Insurance covered some of it, but not enough. Never enough. Emily had taken extra shifts. She had sold her old laptop. She had skipped meals and told herself it was temporary. Then the eviction notice arrived. 72 hours. That was all the landlord had given her. Emily closed her eyes. She remembered the night she had met him. Not the contract, not the signature. The night before. He had been sitting alone at the far end of the diner, untouched coffee growing cold in front of him. She had almost ignored him. Almost. But something about the way he looked at the door like he was waiting for a decision had made her stop. They talked for 10 minutes. Nothing important. Weather, work, silence that did not feel awkward. When he asked her why she looked so tired, she told him the truth. Not everything, but enough. I might lose my place, she had said quietly. I just need a little time. He had listened. Really listened. No pity, no promises, just a nod as if he was filing the information away. The next morning, his assistant had called. By afternoon, she was sitting across from him, staring at numbers that could erase her problems in one stroke. Emily pushed herself up from the floor and walked to the bathroom. The mirror showed a woman she barely recognized. Pale. Eyes ringed with exhaustion. Hair still damp from the rain. You did what you had to do, she whispered to her reflection. Her phone buzzed on the counter. A message. Unknown number. The funds have been scheduled for transfer. You will see them tomorrow. Emily sank onto the edge of the tub, tears blurring her vision. Relief washed over her so fast it almost hurt. Tomorrow meant rent. Tomorrow meant the hospital. Tomorrow meant survival. Another message appeared almost immediately. We will speak in the morning. There are expectations. Expectations. She thought of the way the lawyer had said Mrs. Hale like it was nothing, like it was obvious. She thought of the man himself standing by the window, controlled and distant, as if marriage was just another transaction to be managed. Emily wrapped her arms around herself. This was not a romance. She knew that. This was not a mistake born of hope. It was a choice made under pressure, with consequences she had not fully understood. But it was the only door that had opened. Outside, a siren wailed and faded into the night. Inside her small apartment, Emily sat very still, realizing that by trying to save her family, she had tied her future to a man she barely knew. And tomorrow she would wake up as his wife. Emily slept less than 2 hours that night. When her alarm went off, it felt like she had only just closed her eyes. The sky outside her window was still gray, the city moving slowly, unaware that her life had been rewritten on legal paper while most people were asleep. Her phone buzzed again. A car is waiting downstairs. She stared at the message for a long moment before replying. I will be there. By the time she reached the curb, a black sedan was already parked at the corner. The driver stepped out, opened the door, and nodded politely. No questions. No comments. Just quiet efficiency. The ride was silent. Emily watched the streets change as they moved deeper into the city. Old storefronts gave way to glass buildings and wide entrances. Everything looked cleaner here. More certain. Like nothing bad was ever allowed to happen. The car stopped in front of a modern high-rise she had only seen in magazines. Steel and glass rose into the morning sky, reflecting the clouds like a mirror. This way, Mrs. Hale, the driver said. The title made her flinch. Inside, the air smelled faintly of coffee and polished wood. An elevator whisked her upward without a sound. When the doors opened, she stepped into a quiet office floor, bathed in natural light. He was already there. Daniel Hale stood near the conference table, jacket on, now sleeves buttoned, looking exactly as controlled as he had the night before. He turned as she entered, his expression neutral. "Good morning," he said. "Good morning," Emily replied. Her voice steadied with effort. A slim folder lay on the table between them, much thinner than the stack she had signed the night before. Daniel gestured toward it. "These are the terms you need to understand," he said. "Not the legal language, the rules." Emily sat. He did not. "This marriage exists for a purpose," Daniel continued. "It is not personal. It will not become personal." She nodded slowly. "There are conditions," he said. "You will listen carefully." He opened the folder. "First," he said, "this is a marriage in name only. There will be no physical relationship. We will have separate bedrooms." Emily let out a breath she had not realized she was holding. "Second," he continued, "you will attend public events with me when required. You will present yourself as my wife. Polite, calm, observant, and private," she asked quietly. "In private you live your life," he replied, "as long as it does not interfere with mine." She absorbed that. "Third," Daniel said, "you will not involve yourself in my business decisions. You will not speak to the press. You will not share details of this arrangement with anyone." Emily thought of her mother, of the hospital room, of the promise she had made to survive this. "I understand," she said. "Fourth," he said, his voice steady, "this agreement has a fixed term, 90 days. At the end of that time, the marriage will be dissolved quietly." 90 days. She repeated the number in her head. 3 months. She could endure almost anything for 3 months. "And finally," Daniel said, closing the folder, "there is one rule above all others." Emily looked up at him. "We do not fall in love," he said. The words landed between them, clean and sharp. Emily managed a small, tight smile. "I do not think that will be a problem." Something flickered in his eyes. Approval, perhaps, or relief. "Good," he said. "Then we are clear." He slid a simple band across the table toward her. No diamonds, no engraving, just smooth metal. "This is for appearances," he said. Emily picked it up. It felt heavier than it looked. She slipped it onto her finger. It fit perfectly. "There is one more thing," Daniel added, his tone unchanged. "You will be moving today." "Moving," she echoed. "The building you are in is no longer suitable," he said. "You will stay in one of my properties. It is secure. Private." Emily hesitated. "That feels like more than an agreement." "It is a precaution," he replied. "Nothing more." She nodded again, telling herself the same thing. As they stood across from each other, husband and wife by law but strangers in every other way, Emily realized something unsettling. The contract had drawn clear lines, clean boundaries, a beginning and an end. But standing there wearing a ring she did not choose, she could not shake the feeling that she had just stepped into something far less controllable than Daniel Hale believed. And once rules were made, they could be broken. By the end of the day, Emily no longer recognized her own life. Her small apartment was gone, packed neatly into boxes by people who did not ask questions. The eviction notice vanished with a single phone call she did not hear. Her mother's hospital bill was marked pending, then paid, then closed. Everything that had felt impossible 48 hours ago was suddenly handled. And she had done nothing to earn it except sign her name. The car drove her to the other side of the city where the streets were quieter and the buildings stood farther apart. When the gate opened, Emily leaned forward, startled. This was not a mansion. It was a separate guest residence set behind a larger estate, modern and understated, surrounded by tall hedges and clean stone paths. Large windows faced a private courtyard. No excess. No gold. Just space. Silence. Control. "This will be your residence," Daniel said as they stepped inside. "You will have privacy." Emily walked slowly through the living room, her footsteps echoing softly on the polished floor. The furniture was tasteful but minimal. She set her bag down, unsure where she belonged, in a place designed for no one in particular. That night they ate dinner at opposite ends of the table. Daniel reviewed documents on his tablet while she picked at her food, hyper-aware of every sound. The clink of silverware, the hum of the lights, the distance between them. "Someone will assist you with clothing when necessary." I am not a project, Emily said quietly. Daniel paused, then looked at her. I did not say you were. Their eyes held for a moment longer than necessary. The days that followed blurred together. Emily was introduced to a world she had never imagined entering. Stylists arrived with racks of clothing tailored to her measurements. A woman with a calm voice taught her how to walk into a room and stop without hesitation. How to answer questions without revealing anything real. Confidence, the woman said gently. Not arrogance, not fear. Just presence. Emily practiced until her feet ached. At night she retreated to her room, peeling off borrowed dresses and staring at her reflection, trying to reconcile the woman she saw with the waitress who used to count tips at midnight. Daniel watched all of this from a distance. He noticed when she flinched at raised voices on television, when she folded her clothes with careful precision as if everything might be taken away again, when she left lights on in empty rooms, afraid of the dark silence. He never commented. But one evening, after she returned from her first public appearance, exhausted and overwhelmed, she found a cup of tea waiting for her in the kitchen. Still warm. No note. No explanation. Another night, she came down with a fever. She woke to the quiet sound of footsteps and found a glass of water and medication placed neatly on her bedside table. You did not have to do that, she said the next morning. I know, Daniel replied. Small moments accumulated. He corrected people when they spoke over her. He waited when she needed time. When she stumbled through unfamiliar etiquette, he covered smoothly, never letting her embarrassment show. Emily caught herself laughing once. The sound surprised her. It happened during a quiet breakfast when Daniel made a rare, dry comment about a news anchor who mispronounced his name. She laughed before she could stop herself. He looked at her, genuinely startled. For a second, the rules they had set seemed very far away. That night, Emily lay awake, staring at the ceiling, her ring heavy on her finger. This marriage was not supposed to feel safe. It was not supposed to feel calm. It was supposed to be a transaction. But as the days passed, she began to understand something dangerous. The lie was working too well. And if she was not careful, she might forget which parts of it were real. The invitation arrived 3 days later. It was thick cream colored with Daniel Hale's name embossed in gold at the top. A charity gala hosted by one of the city's oldest foundations. Press confirmed. Board members attending, donors from every corner of the financial world. Emily stared at the card in her hands, her pulse quickening. This is your first official appearance, Daniel said calmly. As my wife. The word still felt unfamiliar. Heavy. What do they expect? She asked. They expect nothing from you, he replied, which is precisely the problem. The preparation began that afternoon. A stylist selected a dress that was elegant without being loud. Deep blue. Simple lines. No excess jewelry. Someone adjusted her hair. Someone else checked her posture. Remember, the woman said softly, you do not need to impress anyone. You just need to stand your ground. Emily nodded, though, her stomach twisted with nerves. When the car pulled up to the venue that evening, the building glowed against the dark sky. Cameras flashed the moment Daniel stepped out. He offered Emily his arm, not looking at her but waiting. She hesitated only a second before taking it. Inside, the room buzzed with conversation and low music. Crystal glasses clinked. Laughter rose and fell in practiced rhythms. Emily felt every eye shift toward her as they entered. Daniel, a man said, approaching with a wide smile. You kept this one hidden. Emily forced a polite smile. Emily, Daniel said evenly. This is Robert Langley, board member. Robert's gaze swept over her, sharp and measuring. Charming, he said. What does she do? Emily opened her mouth, then stopped. Daniel answered first. She does not need to do anything. There was a pause. Subtle, noticeable. As the night went on, the comments grew less subtle. She is unexpected. Is this permanent? She seems quiet. Does she understand what she married into? Emily felt the weight of every whisper, every sideways glance. She stayed close to Daniel, her hand resting lightly on his arm, just as she had been instructed. Then it happened. A woman stepped directly into Emily's path near the bar. Tall, impeccably dressed, smile sharp as glass. I am sorry, the woman said sweetly. I do not believe we have met. Emily Hale. Emily replied, steadying her voice. The woman's smile widened. Of course. I was just curious. You see, Daniel has always been so particular. Emily felt the insult beneath the politeness. And now she asked quietly, and now the woman continued, he brings someone so ordinary. The word hung in the air. The surrounding conversation softened ears turning toward them. Emily could feel her heart pounding. She could feel the urge to step back, to disappear. Instead, she lifted her chin. Ordinary people keep the world running, she said calmly. Someone has to. A few heads turned. A few smiles faded. The woman blinked, surprised. Daniel had been silent until then. That will be enough, he said. The room seemed to still. He stepped closer to Emily, his hand firm at her back. If you have questions about my wife, he continued evenly, you may direct them to me. Otherwise, I suggest you enjoy the evening. The woman flushed and excused herself quickly. Emily looked up at Daniel, startled. You did not have to do that, she whispered. Yes, he replied just as quietly. I did. Later, as they stood near the balcony overlooking the city, a reporter approached. Mr. Hale, the man said, recorder already out. Can you tell us what inspired such a sudden marriage? Daniel did not hesitate. I did not marry suddenly, he said. I married deliberately. The reporter turned to Emily. And you, Mrs. Hale, what does it feel like to step into this world? Emily met the man's gaze. It feels like standing in bright light, she said. You see very clearly who respects you and who does not. The reporter smiled, satisfied. As the night wound down, Emily realized something had shifted. She had survived the test. Not because of the dress, not because of the rules, but because for the first time Daniel Hale had chosen her in public. And that choice made the lie far more complicated than either of them had planned. The drive home from the gala was silent. The city lights slid past the windows of the car, reflected in long streaks of white and gold. Emily sat with her hands folded in her lap, her posture still perfect from hours of practice, her body tired in a way that reached deeper than muscle. Daniel watched the road ahead, one hand resting lightly on the steering wheel. He had dismissed the driver without explanation. Emily noticed, but she did not ask why. When the gate closed behind them, the silence felt different, heavier, more personal. Inside the house, Emily slipped off her heels by the door. The relief was immediate. She winced, flexing her toes. You did well tonight, Daniel said. The words caught her off guard. Thank you, she replied. I was not sure I would. You handled yourself with restraint, he said. Most people do not. She gave a small smile. Most people are not being judged in public for the first time. He nodded, as if accepting that truth. Emily walked toward the kitchen, her movements slower now. The adrenaline of the evening had begun to fade, leaving exhaustion behind. She reached for the counter, steadying herself. Daniel noticed. You should sit, he said. I am fine. You are not, he replied, not unkindly. She hesitated, then sat at the kitchen table. Daniel filled a glass with water and placed it in front of her. Their fingers brushed for half a second. Both of them pulled back. You did not have to defend me, Emily said quietly. At the gala. I know. Then why did you? Daniel did not answer right away. He leaned against the counter, considering his words as carefully as he considered everything else. Because letting them speak to you that way was unnecessary, he said finally. That is not an answer, Emily said. He looked at her then. Really looked at her. Because I wanted to, he said. The honesty in his voice unsettled her. They stood there in silence, the hum of the refrigerator filling the space between them. Emily became suddenly aware of how close he was, of how calm she felt in his presence, of how dangerous that calm might be. I was not supposed to enjoy tonight, she admitted. I was supposed to survive it. And did you? Yes, she said. But that is not all. Daniel's jaw tightened slightly. This arrangement has limits, he said. You should remember that. I do remember, Emily replied. That is what worries me. Later that night, Emily woke to a sharp chill. Her head throbbed, her throat dry. She sat up slowly, disoriented, and immediately regretted it. The door to her room opened quietly. Daniel stood there holding a glass of water and a small bottle of medication. You have a fever, he said. I checked. She frowned weakly. You checked, you were shivering, he replied. I noticed. He set the glass on her bedside table and waited until she drank. His movements were careful, precise, as if this were another task to be handled properly. You should rest, he said. Stay, she said before she could stop herself. The word hung between them. Daniel did not move. That would not be appropriate, he said. I know, Emily whispered. I just do not want to be alone right now. He hesitated. Then he pulled a chair closer to the bed and sat, keeping a deliberate distance. This is still within reason, he said, more to himself than to her. Emily closed her eyes, the tension in her body easing. The room felt warmer. Safer. Daniel, she murmured, half asleep. Yes. What happens if one of us breaks the rules? He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said slowly, the contract fails. Emily turned her head slightly, her voice barely audible. And what if the rules are wrong? Daniel did not answer. When Emily woke again, morning light filtered through the curtains. The chair beside her bed was empty. But the glass had been refilled. The medication replaced neatly. The door left slightly ajar. She touched the ring on her finger, her thoughts heavy. The rules were clear. The lines had been drawn. But something had already crossed them. And neither of them had said it out loud. The call came the next afternoon. Daniel was in his office when his phone rang, the number flashing with a familiar name he had not seen in years. He answered without greeting. They know the voice on the other end said, calm, satisfied, and they are not happy. Daniel closed his eyes slowly. What exactly do you think you know? Enough, the voice replied. The contract, the term, the arrangement. It is all very educational. The line went dead. Across the city, Emily was standing in the guesthouse kitchen when her own phone buzzed. She wiped her hands on a towel and glanced down, expecting a message from the hospital. Instead, she saw a link. She opened it. The headline filled her screen. Business Heir's sudden marriage raises questions. Sources confirm it was a legal arrangement. Her breath caught. Her fingers went numb. The article was already spreading. Photos from the gala, speculation layered over facts. Words like transaction and convenience repeated again and again, stripped of context and mercy. Then she saw it. A scanned image, blurred but unmistakable. The contract. Her signature stared back at her from the screen. Emily sank into the chair, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. Her chest tightened as if the air itself had grown heavy. So this was how it ended. The front door opened moments later. Daniel stepped inside, his expression controlled, but something sharp burned beneath it. We need to talk, he said. Emily did not look up. They published it. Yes, you promised this would stay private, she said quietly. And it was, he replied, until someone decided to use it. She stood then slowly, her hands trembling despite her effort to keep them steady. So all of this, she said, gesturing around the room, was just a strategy. No, Daniel said immediately. Do not, she interrupted, her voice rising for the first time since she had known him. Do not insult me by pretending this did not benefit you. The words hit harder than she expected. Daniel did not deny them. It was meant to be contained, he said. Controlled. Emily laughed once, a short broken sound. You mean like me? Silence fell between them. I was honest about the rules, he said. You were honest about the contract, she replied. Not about the consequences. She picked up her phone and held it out to him. They are calling me a purchase, a placeholder. Something you rented until it was convenient to let go. That is not how I see you. That is how the world does, she said. And you let them. Daniel stepped closer. I am handling it. You already did, Emily said. By writing it in ink. She turned away, blinking back tears she refused to let fall in front of him. I told myself I was strong enough for this, she continued. I told myself I could be anything for 90 days. But I did not agree to be humiliated. You were never meant to be humiliated, Daniel said. But I was, she replied. Because I trusted you. That was the moment his composure cracked. I never meant for you to be hurt, he said quietly. Emily faced him, then her eyes clear, her voice steady. And yet here I am. She reached for her hand and pulled the ring from her finger. The metal slid free too easily, leaving a pale mark behind. "This was never mine," she said, placing it on the table between them. "Neither was this marriage." Daniel stared at the ring as if it were something dangerous. "Emily," he said, his voice low. "If you leave now, I already have," she replied. She picked up her bag, moving with a calm that surprised even her. "I was poor before you," she said. "I survived. I can do it again. But I will not stay where I am, a secret that went wrong." She walked past him, her steps steady, her head high. The door closed softly behind her. Daniel stood alone in the quiet house, the ring cold beneath his fingers, realizing too late that the contract had done exactly what it was designed to do. It had protected his empire and destroyed the only thing in his life that had been real. Daniel did not sleep that night. The house felt different without Emily's presence. Too quiet, too large. Every sound echoed longer than it should have. The guest house lights remained off, dark against the courtyard like a closed door he was not allowed to open. At dawn, Daniel stood alone in his office, staring at the contract laid flat on his desk. 90 days. Terms. Conditions. Signatures. For years, contracts had been his language. They were how he built companies, settled disputes, protected himself from risk. Paper never betrayed him. People did. And yet, the only thing that felt false in that room was the paper itself. His phone buzzed continuously. Messages from board members, advisors, public relations consultants. Each one urging control. Damage limitation. Silence. Daniel ignored them. Instead, he made one call. "Cancel the meeting," he said to his assistant. "All of them." There was a pause. "Sir, the board, I am aware," he replied. "Prepare a public statement. Effective immediately." By mid-morning, the article had been replaced by another. "Billionaire heir dissolves contract, marriage takes full responsibility." Emily saw it on a television mounted above a waiting room in the hospital. She sat stiffly in the plastic chair, her coat folded on her lap, her eyes fixed on the screen as the reporter spoke. Daniel's name, Daniel's face, Daniel's voice. "I entered into that marriage, believing I could control every outcome," he said, standing alone behind a simple podium. No advisors. No legal counsel beside him. "I was wrong." Emily's breath caught. "The contract was my decision," Daniel continued. "The damage was my responsibility. Emily Hale was never a transaction. She owed me nothing. And I failed to protect her dignity." The reporter asked a question. Daniel did not hesitate. "I am formally dissolving the agreement," he said, "effective today, with no conditions, no compensation, no expectations." Emily felt her hands begin to shake. "This is not a legal maneuver," Daniel said. "It is an apology." That evening, Emily returned to the guest house to retrieve the last of her things. She did not expect him to be there. Daniel stood in the courtyard as she approached the contract folder in his hands. He looked different. Not weaker, but unguarded. "I did not come to ask you back," he said before she could speak. "I came to give you this." He handed her the folder. Emily opened it slowly. The contract had been torn cleanly in half. Every page, every clause. "I ended it publicly," Daniel said. "There will be no questions. No speculation. Your name will not be dragged through this again." Emily closed the folder. "You did not have to do that." "Yes," he said. "I did." She studied him carefully. "Why? Because keeping it would have meant choosing my reputation over your worth," he replied. "And I will not do that again." The air between them felt heavy but honest. "I am not asking you to forgive me," Daniel continued, "and I am not asking you to stay. This is your choice. Completely." He reached into his pocket and placed the ring on the stone table between them. "This no longer belongs to an agreement," he said. "It belongs to you. Or to no one at all." Emily stared at the ring, then at him. "For once," she said quietly, "you are not controlling the outcome." Daniel nodded. "I know." She picked up the ring, turning it slowly between her fingers, not because she intended to wear it, but because she needed to understand what it represented now. "You broke the rules," she said. "I broke the wrong ones," he replied. Emily looked up, meeting his eyes. "And if I walk away, then I will respect that," Daniel said. "And I will still be grateful that you were ever here." Silence settled around them. This time, it was Emily who made the decision. Not because of money, not because of fear, but because for the first time Daniel Hale had chosen love without a contract to protect him. And that choice changed everything. Emily did not answer that night. She left the guest house quietly, the torn contract folder tucked under her arm, the ring resting in her coat pocket like a question she was not ready to solve. The city welcomed her back with familiar noise and motion. She stayed near the hospital, sleeping on a narrow couch in the waiting room, waking whenever her mother stirred. For the first time in weeks, Emily felt light. Not because everything was fixed, not because the future was clear, but because her life was her own again. Daniel kept his distance. He honored his word with a discipline that surprised even his closest advisors. No calls, no messages, no public statements beyond what he had already said. The tabloids moved on, starved of new scandal. The world found something else to consume. Days passed. Then one afternoon, Emily walked out of the hospital into clean sunlight and stopped short. Daniel was waiting across the street. No suit. No assistants hovering nearby. Just him standing with his hands in his pockets, looking uncertain in a way she had never seen before. "I wanted to see you," he said when she crossed the street. "You said you would respect my choice," Emily replied. "I am," Daniel said. "This is not a request, it is a conversation, only if you want it." She studied his face, searching for calculation, for strategy. She found none. They walked together through a small park nearby, the air cool and bright. People passed them without recognition. No one stared. No one whispered. "This is where I grew up," Emily said suddenly, gesturing toward a row of modest buildings. "Not far from here," Daniel nodded. "I did not know." "You never asked," she said, then softened. "And I never expected you to." They stopped near a bench beneath a tree just beginning to bloom. "I spent my life believing control was the same thing as safety," Daniel said. "If I could predict outcomes, I could avoid loss." "And now," Emily asked. "And now I know that love does not survive behind rules," he said. "It survives behind honesty." Emily reached into her pocket and took out the ring. She did not put it on. She placed it between them on the bench. "This was never a promise," she said. "It was a condition." "I know," Daniel replied. She took a breath. "If there is an us, it cannot look like that." Daniel met her eyes. "Then tell me what it looks like." "It looks like choice," she said. "Every day, with no expiration date, no paper protecting you." He nodded once. "I accept that." Emily considered him for a long moment. Then she picked up the ring. She slipped it onto her finger herself. Not because she had to, not because she was asked, but because she wanted to. This time she said quietly, "It is real, or it is nothing." Daniel exhaled, the tension in his shoulders easing. He did not reach for her. He did not rush the moment. "Then it is real," he said. Months later, there was no grand wedding, no headlines, no contracts, just a small ceremony in a quiet garden attended by a handful of people who knew them as Daniel and Emily, not as a story the world had consumed and discarded. When Emily spoke her vows, she did not mention wealth or sacrifice. She said, "I choose you," without fear. When Daniel spoke his, he did not promise protection. He said, "I choose you," without control. The contract that had once bound them lay framed in a private room, torn and incomplete, a reminder of where they had begun, not as a symbol of love, but as proof that the wrong signature can still lead to the right forever. And sometimes, the truest marriage begins only after the paper is gone.